The Captain's Log Radio, with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, welcome to the Captain's Log Radio Show. I'm your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to be solo today for the radio show. It's the first time we've done a solo show. And of course, hear how I sound. I sound fantastic. My wife took the kids to the playground and the oldest got sick, and it's been going around the Moss family this week. And of course, I sound absolutely terrible. I wish I could say it's because I've been on the water catching a lot of fish and screaming out of excitement, but it is strictly from being sick with the kids. So I'm going to do my best to not cough. I'm going to do my best not to clear my throat. I do have my icon cup. It's full of water. So I'm going to be drinking that as much as I can. But hey, it's a great week to be thankful. It's Thanksgiving. It's the week of Thanksgiving. November is flying by. I feel like I blinked and it was October. I blinked, it was Halloween. And then my baby boy turned 3 on November 1st. And here we are, the week of Thanksgiving. Absolutely insane. Here in Central Florida, we had a really good cold front come through. And if you've been on the water, you've seen the trend. You've seen the water temps have dropped drastically. I'm talking a week ago, let's start a month ago. Water was in the upper 80s. Then 2 weeks ago, it was in the lower 80s. And this week, I should say last week, water is in the upper 60s. Some areas as low as 67. Excuse me, as the sun got up in the afternoon, water would flirt with 70, 71. So a quick change. I tell you, if you are fishing the flats, you got to remember where I guide full time. I am in the Mosquito Lagoon and the Indian River Lagoon. So I'm fishing in 3 feet of water. Majority of the time, I'm fishing in 3 feet of water or less. Now, there are days where I do, there's days where I do get deeper. There's some certain areas that I fish that are canals or drop-offs that are, 4 to 8 feet, 8 at the max. Okay. But the bulk of my time is in 3 feet or less. So water temps, though it's a lot of water, water temps can dip pretty fast in our area, surprisingly fast. And I've seen that change pretty quick. In the last couple of weeks, it's gotten down in the upper 60s pretty quick. Now that's a good thing. I feel like our fish, they have to endure a lot with summertime. It's warm. We're talking some areas of water temps in the mid upper 90s. That's hot. And you got to remember when that water's hot, there's less dissolved oxygen. And fish need that dissolved oxygen to breathe. That's why it's so crucial in the summer months that when you catch a fish and you fight that fish, that you're using adequate tackle. You don't want to show up on a hot day chasing bull reds or chasing big tarpon and using too light of tackle and fight that fish literally until it's death. Because the water's hot and they're so hot, it takes forever to revive them. And majority of the time, they don't revive because the water's so hot. They're so out of breath. They're so out of oxygen. The second thing is you want to make sure that you are taking the time. Okay. Beef up your gear. Get that fish into the boat quick. And then take the time, especially when you're using that bigger gear, to revive those fish. That's huge. But if you're using too light of tackle, most of the time it's not going to be adequate enough to revive those fish. They're going to be spent. And I've seen that happen firsthand. And it's unfortunate. We'll show up for a redfish trip and big tarpon will show up and you have to go after them. I have a client from the Midwest who's never seen a tarpon before. Now there's 100-pounders. And of course we're going to try. But if we can't get that fish in quick, hey, let's break off. because I don't kill the fish. So now these fish are experiencing water temps in the upper 60s, low 70s. Big change, full of oxygen. They fight you all the way to the boat, and then they fight you in the boat. And then you pull them out of the water, you take a picture, and you put them back in the water, and they're gone. Like just, it's an unbelievable change how these fish react so much different and respond and fight so much. So it's so much fun. And that's an opportunity where you can now lighten your tackle. That's an opportunity where you can, you can play the fish, you can fight the fish, you can really take a second to enjoy what you're doing. You go out there and you're sight fishing redfish or trout or snook, whatever. And yeah, I said snook. We caught some snook this week. We caught some snook in some chilly water. And I know there's guys wrecking them right now in the in the inlets, even though that water temps drop. But where I've been at, Mosquito Lagoon, Indian River Lagoon, I don't fish. I don't fish the Mosquito Lagoon as much as I'd like. Um, probably shouldn't say it that way. I love the Mosquito Lagoon. I love launching at Hollow Canal. If you're not familiar, it's a man-made canal that connects the Indian River to the west and the Mosquito Lagoon to the right or to the east. And that canal runs horizontally between the two. I love launching there, idling through. It's an idle zone only because of the manatees. And working my way east into Mosquito Lagoon. Got Kennedy Space Center to the south of me, to the right. Ocean is half a mile across the river, across the lagoon. And you have the ocean, Canaveral National Seashore, Atlantic Ocean. Love being there. I love seeing that sun rise up over the mangroves. I mean, it's one of my favorite places. I haven't been there in a while. I spend most of my time in Titusville, East Central Florida, fishing the Indian River Lagoon, the northern part of the Indian River Lagoon. The Indian River Lagoon runs from South Daytona down to Jupiter. It's hundreds of miles. So I'm in the northern portion of the Indian River Lagoon. But what's I always find interesting, I let's see, I might have it here with me. The name of the TV show, the name of the radio show is Captain's Log. Okay, having one of these cheap composition notebooks where you can come home and you don't have to do it in this. I actually have a form, and it's not here. I have a folder. I've created a form where I have the name of my client, the date, weather, what we used, where we went. Having that captain's log where you can write down your experience for the day, and even your phone. If you have an iPhone, I don't know about Android, but if you have an iPhone, there's the note section. You can do it there. It can be saved up in the cloud. Photos. I remember when I grew up, I was playing football, and our coach would always talk about these games from. I remember 5 years ago, boy, we were playing Merritt Island High School and yada yada. And I'm like, bro, how do you remember all this stuff? It's amazing that I can remember fishing trips. As a guide, I take a lot of fishing trips, so I don't remember all of them. But when I look at photos, it's like that memory. I remember exactly where we were. I might not remember the client's name, but I remember where we caught that fish. So having something that you can reference, it is amazing to me that every year I can find quality fish in the same spots. And at certain times of the year, these fish want to be in certain spots. And other times of the year, they're not there. It's a ghost town. But this time of year, those first cold fronts start showing up middle, late October. And it drops down a little bit. The water temperature gets down just a little bit. And I go and check those spots. They're not there yet. They're not there yet. But then that good first cold front comes in November. That water temp starts dipping down. And I go and check, and they're there. Those fish showed up like clockwork every single year. These fish, and it's probably not the same fish. It might be. But I'm finding quality, slot size, even though the redfish are closed, can't keep them. Quality, mid to upper slot size redfish in the same spots that I've did the last 4 or 5 years. And the crazy part, you pull out that, I don't know where to do it, a composition notebook. Here it is. You pull out that composition notebook and you can reference it. You can go, hey man, what did I do? Let's go through. What did I do November last year? What did I do November the year before that? Having that written down. You can go through your phone, right? You can pull out the photos on your phone. What did I do November last year? Scroll through there. Having that little information, that little packet. My dad says it all the time. The worst ink is better than the best memory. That's good. I have a terrible memory. Terrible. I put stuff down. I can lose my glasses all the time, lose my keys all the time, partly because I have kids and they move stuff. My wife moves stuff. Sorry, babe. Don't know the bus. But I have a terrible memory. The worst ink is better than the best memory. That means, hey, write it down. Because if it's written down and it's in ink, in a pencil lead, it's on paper, more than likely you're gonna if you can remember where you put it, have everything stored in one spot in your captain's log. You can go back and revisit those spots. You can, hey man, hey, first cold front of November came through, and I did this at this spot. And if you're like me and you got a million things going on between work and family and trying to have fun and balancing all that and hitting the gym, there's a lot going on. And so it's hard to remember these things. So this first segment, think about that. Do you have a captain's log? Are you writing down your notes? Are you thinking through what you did on the water? What was successful? When we get back, we're going to talk more about fishing spots, East Central Florida, what's going on, kind of our forecasting right now. I had a great week. I want to tell you all about it.
This is the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio Show. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss. We spent the first part of this show talking about the importance of having a captain's log, of writing down your fishing trips. Even if you're hunting, that's another good thing to write down. Where you were, what you saw, maybe having a hard drive to store your cam footage if you have like a cam out in the woods. But I went back. It was back in the Mosquito Lagoon this week. Hadn't fished it in probably a couple months. And I looked at I didn't have to look. I knew because I knew it's been like clockwork. I went back to these specific spots and it's unbelievable. There's one spot that I love to hit. It's just so random. It is so random. I don't want to say it because someone's going to follow me and know people see me and I don't want them to know about it. Whatever. It's great. This spot is so small. And I went to it this week on Monday. Had a great client from Texas. His name's David. And we went to that spot and I hadn't been to it. I hadn't fished that spot since last year. I've been in the lagoon between then, but I hadn't fished that spot since last year. So yeah, I got to risk it for the biscuit. But I had so much confidence knowing that the last several years, we're a couple of days out of a full moon, a couple of days out of the cold front. The water temp's gone down. They're going to be there. I'm not worried about it. They're going to be there. And they were. Redfish and trout. And we fished this spot. And I say we because he looked at me, he's like, bro, grab a rod. And I was like, okay. Like, I'll let him stick the first few. And then I made a cast and I caught one. And we hit this spot and we caught the first fish was we didn't catch a trout less than 20 inches. A thick, probably 24-inch trout on artificial, throwing up this right here. I was wondering where I put these. I was on the water a couple of days ago and I couldn't find it. And they're right here on my desk. DOA cow, that chartreuse tail, that root beer color of the chartreuse tail. I don't know what they call this color. They probably have a number for it, but root beer and chartreuse. If it ain't chartreuse, there ain't no use. That's what people say. Rigged weedless, owner 3/0, 1/8 hook. We got grass coming back, so I like throwing a weedless. I fish a lot of mangroves. I like being able to skip it on mangroves, so having a weedless is huge. We fished this spot. I did circles. I think we circled the spot twice in 2 hours and caught 9 redfish, all slot size, some upper slot, 2 trout, both over 20 inches, and a Jack Crevalle. The Jack was really random. His first Jack, so that was cool. And it was crazy to me, I knew they were going to be there. I didn't know for certain. I mean, I knew for certain they were going to be there, but I wasn't sure. Like, I hadn't fished it since last year, and those fish were there. It was great. It was awesome. Dude's looking at me like, bro. The bad part about like crushing it in that first little bit of your trip, he booked a full day trip. Is now I want the rest of the day to be as productive as that first part of the day. It's got to maintain. Otherwise, if you come out too hot and then the rest of the day is a dud, he booked a full day, 8-hour trip, and then it's like, oh man, this is tough. So you want to be able to find those areas and know those areas that are going to hold fish all day long. And the fish are eventually going to stop biting because you caught all of them in that zone, right? Or they spooked off or whatever. But we fished that one spot for 2 hours. 2 hours. But we had a blast. Then we moved to the next zone. It was later in the morning. When we got there, we left in the dark. We got there first light. Sun wasn't even up, but there was enough light. I think I didn't go that fast to get to it because it was dark. Moved to the next spot. It's like, I don't know, 8 o'clock. And now there's more boats around. And there were some boats in some other areas that I wanted to go to. Because at this point, we needed a snook to complete the slam. Excuse me. But there's people fishing where I wanted to catch a snook. So, okay, we're going to pause. I'm watching what they're doing. I'm going to hit this other spot, which is on my list to do that day. And again, hadn't been there, but in my memories, in my notebook, in my captain's log, in my photos, my phone, things I can reference, this spot was productive the last time I did this exact same pattern last year. Sure enough, make some casts, boom, 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 we got fish in the boat. So I had a game plan, but my game plan kind of changed, but I had a backup plan and I knew those fish would be there. Sure enough, they were there. Okay, well now I'm ready to move, but those people are still in my snook spot. So we fired up, we made a run, and there's a bigger island. So there's a lot of islands in Mosquito Lagoon. Different zones, 3 Cabbage, Preacher's Island, lots of areas. And I'm focused on the middle part of the lagoon. Then you got the Pole and Troll, glory holes go up north of there, and just working your way up, whatever. It's one particular island. And this time of year, 2 corners. Well, there's 4 corners, but there's 2 corners in particular that when the wind's blowing a certain direction, the fish will stack up either on one corner or the other. And it's the craziest thing. Some days they're They're on this corner, and there's no fish on the other. I can't explain it. I couldn't tell you why. But if they're not at this corner, sure enough, they're going to be on the other corner of this island. And the wind has to be blowing a certain way. I think they stage up. The wind's coming out of the northeast. I think they stage up on the points, and they hold there, and they're waiting for that bait to come get pushed down the shoreline. That water's flowing by, and they can get up on that corner and hold out and wait. And as baits come by, and boom, it's on. It's on. So how you position your boat, how you approach it is really crucial, because you don't want to run in on the fish. You want to be in a position where you can cast your lure, you can cast your bait. And again, we use these the entire day, the 3-inch cow shad tails from DOA. A swim bait. You want to position yourself where you're making a cast and you're bringing your bait and it looks natural. It's coming down the same direction that the natural bait, the mullet and the shrimp, pinfish, whatever, to chase them, it's coming down the same way that they would. So we staged up. Everything was right. Everything was perfect. We weren't catching any fish. And I told him, I said, hey, they're either on this corner or that corner. Weren't catching any fish. I said, okay. Well, today they decided not to be here. They're going to be on the other corner. Had I been there? No. But because time on the water, having my captain's log, having my notebook, I go and reference, I knew they're going to be on the other spot. So we fished our way to it. I didn't want to just idle over there or pull straight to it, because you had a good shoreline that historically has provided a fish or two. So we're pulling down the shoreline, and I see these flashes in the water. And I have no idea what they are. I thought they were big mullet. And I'm watching it. And I say out loud, I think these are mullet, man. But let's just pay attention. Because I couldn't see in the water too great. The way the sun was positioned, it was really cloudy. So sun was in and out. And then I saw one bait jump out, like jolt out. Like it wasn't a bait. I said, that's a snook or that's a trout. Because it came out of the mangroves, it ate, and then came back in. And mullet aren't going to act like that. So I kind of positioned the boat. I said, hey, right in that little pocket. Throw in that pocket. And as soon as this bait hit the water and sank down about 2 inches, boom, fish on. And it was a snook. So we got the snook to the boat. What a big snook. 12, 15 inches was our zone there. But it was his first snook ever. And we got the slam. And then it was like every cast, we were wrecking the snook. It was unbelievable. And he looked at me, he's like, Jonathan, this is crazy. So then I picked up a rod and I actually tied on a DOA shrimp, because this time of year, I'm expecting to start seeing the shrimp popping. I'm starting to see them up on the surface and getting chased and kind of dancing skittering on the surface. I haven't seen them yet. I haven't seen any shrimp in the lagoon or in the river. Soon, I'm sure it'll happen soon. But I threw on a shrimp, pink 2.75 inch, so the smaller shrimp the DOA makes. Skipped under there in the mangroves. As soon as it hit the water, it got smoked, and we just started wrecking the snook. I mean, it was one after the other. Sometimes we missed a bunch. No, I don't want to say we missed them. They were getting short strikes, a lot of short strikes. So that's the biggest reason why I switched to that shrimp, because it had an exposed hook, and we just started hitting them. And then I was like, okay, we've got enough snook. We've got, I don't know, at least a dozen in the boat. Let's transition. Let's move over to that point, that second point. And the first one, they weren't there. We worked our way there, found the snook. Now we're at the second point. Water is flowing by. Okay? It's coming at us. The wind's being blown at us. The water's pushing towards us. So I power pull down. The boat spun around. So now we transition to the back of the boat, casting from the back of the boat. I'm no longer on the pulling platform. And off this point is a sandbar. Okay. And because there's a bar there and the water flowing over it, there's like a trough. And it goes from, being a foot deep at the sandbar to 3 feet deep. So you have a little ledge. And that's a great spot for these fish to sit in this hole. As soon as you got to that bar and it dropped in that little hole, boom, every time, boom, boom. It was awesome. Dude's looking at me like, bro, what are we doing today? We are not fishing, we are catching. Again, focusing back on, hey, I had a place where I wrote these notes down. Sure enough, they were there. And we wrecked it.
This is the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, so welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio Show. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss. Been trying to really focus in on encouraging you guys to start writing down notes. I can't tell you this week of charters has been successful simply because I had something to reference. We've been talking about water temp. We've been talking about how things have changed in the Mosquito Lagoon. But before we get into all that, I want to touch in. Got so many incredible supporters: Florida Fishing Products, Danco Pliers, Icon Coolers, Chums, Skinny Water Culture. All of these companies are incredibly important to me. They're huge partners for me and part of my success. They partner with me for the show and with the radio show for TV and radio, and they are all having a sale. So if it's Black Friday, it's Cyber Monday weekend, get out there and go to these websites. Danco Pliers is running a deal up to 75% off on lots of incredible products. My favorite pliers outside of the Premios are the Admirals. I love the Admirals, and you can get they're a 6.5-inch plier. They have the side cutter. They come in a sheath. They have so many different colors that you can choose from. But I love the Admirals. That's my go-to outside of the Premios for Danco. They've got all kinds of knives and gaffs and just fishing tools and accessories. Great stocking stuffers. If you don't know what to get your husband, you don't know what to get your brother. I'm terrible to shop for. My wife, my family is always like, I don't know what to get you. I don't know what to get you. I don't, because I like just, if I need something, I go get it. But if you need an idea, dancopliers.com. They got all kinds of stuff for Black Friday. Florida Fishing Products, they're having a huge sale. They've got line, got reels, spinning, and bait casters, nearshore, inshore, offshore stuff, freshwater stuff, whatever you need. It's reels, line, and leader. And top water plugs, they've got it, and they're running a great deal for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Check out their website, floridafishingproducts.com. Chums is having a great deal. I use Chums. I use their retainers. I use these stupid things every day. Like, it's the cheap little thing that holds my glasses up. But without them, I would lose my glasses, So if you're making the investment in sunglasses, they're not cheap. Sunglasses aren't cheap. Mine are prescription. They're even more expensive. Take care of them. You've heard me say it a million times. My dad always says, take care of your tools and take care of you. Get you some Chums. They make so many different varieties of retainers. I like, they have a wire one. It's real thin. I love that one. It's my favorite. It's great. I don't even know it's there. And then when I get on the water, they're around my neck. I take my glasses off. When the sun comes up, I put my sunglasses on. They're ready to go. They also make a spray for your sunglasses. If you're fishing saltwater, especially, don't just if you get sprayed in the face. I release fish and they slap the water. So it's this time of year with it being colder water temp. They let them in the water. They're just full energy. They splash water and it gets salt water in your face. Don't just rub them on your glasses. Okay, or on your shirt. Don't just rub it on your shirt. It's going to scratch. The salt is going to scratch your lenses. So having that spray, whew, I sound like a 13-year-old boy. Excuse me. Having that spray to spray your glasses and clean them, use the microfiber, that's the right way to do it. So check out Chums. Love Chums. They make some really good, cool stuff. And if you're looking for something for your wife, they got all kinds of options that are pretty cool, girly colors. My wife is dangerous. She goes on their website and it's dangerous because she loves all their stuff. So, Skinny Water, honestly don't know what their sales is going to be, but they always do a killer Cyber Monday deal. So, sale, I should say. This is a Skinny Water shirt. I love it. It's buttoned down. This material actually has a bunch of holes in it. So it's real breathable, real lightweight. They have a hooded version that I use is probably, I got one hanging up in my closet behind me, closet, armoire, whatever they call that thing. But I love that version because it's real light, real breathable. Put my hood on, got holes for your thumb to cover your hands. It's important. You need to have sun protection. I can't stand wearing sunscreen. I do. I put sunscreen on my nose and my cheeks. I don't like buffs. I don't like wearing something over my face. That you're breathing, you're pulling, not hot air coming out of your nose or your mouth. It's gonna fog up your glasses. So I'm not a big fan of wearing a buff, but I do. I always have my hat, and I like wearing that hood. Covers my ears, covers my neck. In Skinny Water, if you forget your your microfiber on all of their shirts, they put in microfiber. Love that. That's genius. That's smart. So skinnywaterculture.com, dancopliers.com, Icon Coolers, another big supporter of me. They're coming out with a brand new backpack cooler. We my wife and I have been prototyping the first one. It's fantastic. It's 2 layers. The top part connects to the bottom part with Velcro. The top part's insulated. It has a lid. We use that when we're going. We take the whole thing. We go to the beach, and we separate stuff. It's incredible. That little one, if we're going on the boat, we'll take the bigger one. We're going on the boat. We're going on the beach. Just take the little one. And we got a lot of stuff. We take it all. We take it to Disney all the time. It's fantastic. So check out these companies. They're big supporters of me, and means a lot to me that they want to support me in the show and the TV and the radio side. So check them out. FloridaFishingProducts.com, dancopliers.com, iconcoolers.com, chums.com, skinnywaterculture.com, TimbleForkOutfitters.com, TFORods.com. I think that's their website. But yeah, so back to fishing. Whew, that took a while. Before we get into fishing, let's talk about social media. If you're a fan of the show, really appreciate if you could likes and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Captain's Log TV, at the Captain's Log TV on all three. Full-length episodes are on the YouTube channel at the Captain's Log TV or on the website, thecaptainslogtv.com. Of course, you can download the Waypoint TV app and watch there. So check it all out. Love for you to watch. Send me a message. I want to talk to you. I want to connect. You have a suggestion or hey, I have a question. Tell me about this. Let me know. Love to talk about it. Love to answer that question. Love to hear from you. I love seeing what you're catching. So you follow me, more likely I'm going to follow back because I want to see what you're doing. Send me DMs of the fish you're catching, what's been working for you. So we're going to transition a little bit over to the freshwater side. I've been spending a lot of time with saltwater, but I love freshwater fishing. I love bass fishing. And lately, these cold fronts, the bass have been real aggressive, chasing shad up on the surface. I don't have one with me. I should have grabbed one. You can throw the swim baits, but I like throwing jerk bait with these bass. If you think about, match the hatch. Look at what these fish are eating. What are they chasing? What are they going after? And in this particular situation, these bass are chasing shad, and they're about that big, tiny. And they're just gorging themselves. These aren't big bass. These are schooly size, largemouth bass on a lake in Central Florida, here in Orlando, and they do it on several lakes. So pick one. They're probably doing it, but they're pushing the bait up to the surface, and a lot of times I'm finding that these bass are staging in like 10 to 12 feet of water, and it doesn't happen until the sun can come up and the sunlight's hitting that bait and they start flickering. And these bass are staged 10, 12 feet of water. We're fishing in 20 feet, but the bass are in the middle of that water column and they're looking up. And when these piles, these schools, these just groups of shad, these bait fish, start flashing in the sunlight, they work themselves up, the bass shoot themselves up, and then they start going on a feeding frenzy. It's like a blitz that you'd see, in the ocean, like you see with stripers feeding on the surface, or Jack Crevalle going bananas on the surface, just erupting on bait fish. They get a bad rap, but ladyfish do a similar thing in the lagoon, in the rivers, okay, in the Indian River Lagoon. These bass are just frothing. They're going bananas. They're chasing and eating and pounding these baits, and it lasts for about 30 seconds. It doesn't last for a long time. But when you are watching and you're looking, you're scanning, and you see it happen, and you position your boat and kind of, I don't even move. I get in the area that they're in, and they will eventually get to you, and you can kind of fall around. But they start going bananas for like 30 seconds. And you're throwing that jerk bait in, and then as soon as it hits the water, boom, fish on. You can throw your swim bait in there, they're going to crush it. Fish on. You can throw a top water. But what I really like throwing is that jerk bait because it's a suspending jerk bait. Throw it out, you can throw it a mile. You twitch it, let it sit. Twitch it, let it sit. Twitch it, let it sit. It's kind of how you're working it. Pop, 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 pop. And it's just rattling, shaking, it's vibrating. Those jerk baits have a ball bearing inside of them, and it clicks when you shake it. And sometimes, and it's got two treble hooks. The ones I'm using, it's the my favorite is a Rapala X Wrap, the number 8, size number 8. They make a 6, which is smaller. It mimics the shad better, but you can't throw it as far. I like the 8 because you can throw it further. But it mimics that bait so good. Okay, it's a little bit bigger, but the action and the noise and the vibration, the flash that it puts off, and with 2 hooks on it, sometimes we catch 2 bass at one time. Sometimes the fish comes off and another one will smoke it. It is so much fun. Absolutely love doing that. And I've been doing that a lot this week. I'll be out there tomorrow. Actually, got a bass charter. We'll be doing that. Hey, these segments are flying by. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss. We've got more to talk about. One more segment with the Captain's Log Radio Show. Thanks so much for being here. We'll be right back.
This is the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.
Hey, welcome back to the Captain's Log Radio Show. I'm Captain Jonathan Moss. Thank you again for being here, for supporting me, for watching the show, for listening to the radio show. It means so much to have you. We're entering that week of Thanksgiving, and I'm very, very thankful for you guys. We spent the first 2 segments talking about saltwater fishing, what's going on here in East Central Florida, in the northern part of the Indian River Lagoon, Mosquito Lagoon. Last segment, we talked about bass fishing, chasing these largemouth bass, these schooling bass on our Central Florida lakes. They're chasing the shad, throwing a jerk bait or a swim bait, something that 2 to 3 inch size that mimics the shad. Another thing that's going on this time of year, and this is nostalgic for me, going fishing growing up going fishing with my dad in the wintertime, after we started getting those first couple cold fronts at night for specks. Now, I'm not talking speckled trout. Excuse me. I'm not talking speckled trout. I'm not talking, um, I don't know what other fish they call specks. In Central Florida, we call a crappie speck because it's a speckled perch. Here specifically, we have black crappie, so black specks. Other parts of the country, you have white crappie, you have black crappie mix. Sometimes you'll have both in a lake, but here specifically, we have a black crappie. And again, we don't call them crappie. If you're from Florida, Central Florida at least, you don't call them crappie. What do they call them where you live? I don't know. I got some buddies that live in. I got a good friend, Matty B, good client and friend in Oklahoma, and they call them crappie there. I've got some friends in Louisiana. They think they call them sac-a-lait or something. I'm getting that wrong, I'm sure. So if you're from Louisiana, please forgive me. But here we call them specks. And my dad and I, telling you, guys, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I sound like my voice is changing, but it's not. My dad and I used to go fishing. We still do in the wintertime at night for specks. And it's different. This is the only time I ever go fishing at night. It's very rare that I go fishing at night. But you're in the city of Orlando. There's a lot of light pollution. It's bright out. Okay. You're on a lake that's surrounded by homes, and most of them have lights and dock lights. So you can kind of see. But we bring, actually, I use it here in the studio, so you can see. But I have a light, and I have one with a bowl. Okay, it's a aluminum bowl, and we attach those to the batteries. And you can do that with alligator clips, and we shine them, excuse me, down into the water. Now they're not in the water; they're above the water, and we use this light shining down into the water. And it's supposed to be like the full moon. It's supposed to congregate bait around that light. Um, but we do that in the wintertime. And we're looking typically in 20 to 30 feet of water. And now with the advancements in technology, you can look at your unit, your fish finder, and you can do a down view. You can do side scan. You can see, you got a live scope, which is just insanity how cool that is. You can see where these fish are staged up. And that water gets colder in the wintertime. It was crazy to me. We focus on these fish in the wintertime, but they're there year round. Occasionally, we'll catch one during the summer bass fishing, which is really interesting and always a surprise. But wintertime, it's spec fish. It's spec season. Okay. And we're looking for on our units in 20 to 30 feet of water a ball of fish. You'll find on the unit. Like it's just the screen lights up. It's unbelievable. And we'll spot lock. And we use minnows. I like using live minnows. And I'll get 3 or 4 rods going at one time. And you sit back, cool evening, cup of coffee, just chilling, hanging out, and you're staring at rod tips. And then they go, "Woo, woo, woo." Oh man, that thing goes off, bro. Man, I'm grabbing that rod, just lift it up, and you're tight. They do it ice fishing. They're sitting in a little shanty, and they got, the little rod holders and lines going down in the hole, and they're looking, and then I feel like it's the same thing. It's like our version of ice fishing. I love it. You can use jigs. If you're spec fishing in the daytime, you have these crazy rod holders. It's like a spreader. It's like you're got outriggers, offshore, and you got a spread, and you're trolling. Usually with your trolling motor, you're not going that fast, and you're trolling a zone, an area with your jigs, and one goes off, and you catch them, and if a bunch of them go off, then you spot lock and you chill in that zone for a second, get all your fish in, and you kind of keep working around that same zone, trolling with your jigs. I've actually never done that. I've never spec fished that way before. We've always done it at night with your minnows. Now we've used jigs. And when I say jigs, I'm talking you can go to the store and buy crappie jigs. Um, they'll be labeled as crappie jigs, but respects there. And they're little plastics with a little J hook. And you can, and a lot of times we'll throw our minnows down, and while we're baiting weight, we're watching our rod tips. We'll drop down a jig, let it sink on, get a split shot. They'll come with a jig head on it, but if that's not like a 16th ounce or a 32 ounce, is that how you say it? A small jig head, they're light. If that's not enough weight, we'll add a split shot to it, sink it down to the bottom, make sure it hits the bottom, and look on your graph and see where those fish are staged, and determine how many cranks of your reel, you know, how many turns of that handle, how much line, and you can find that out by looking on top of your reel, your gear ratio, to bring that bait or that jig in that zone. Or if you use a live scope, you can just see it come up. But working it up to that zone and working that jig. A lot of times they'll hit it on the drop. Same with the live bait. Sometimes you'll be growing right through them and one will come and grab it. And that's a lot of fun. We do have bycatch while we're doing that. You'll catch bass, and that's not a terrible bycatch. We'll catch chain pickerel, and you know it's a pickerel, because the pickerel they'll swim in a circle. So if you've got a bunch of lines out, 3 or 4 like we typically do, one of them gets a pickerel, man, it's going to be a mess. They're going to swim in circles around all the lines. They just do like, I don't know, it's crazy. They make the biggest mess. So you never really want to get those guys. But that is an absolute blast. I love going spec fishing. I've been doing it with my kid. I told my son, my oldest, this week. I was like, dude, man, it's right. It's right. Like, you need to get better. You need to get over your cold. Daddy needs to get over his cold, so we can go spend an evening out on the water. And it's peaceful out there. You don't have the jet skiers aren't out there. The water skiers aren't out there. No one's out there. It's nighttime. No one's out there are the anglers, and there's usually not a ton of them. So if you've never done that, that's something to consider. If you're working during the day and you want to get out, this time change, it's getting dark so early. If you want to get out and do something a little different, it doesn't take a lot. Okay. If you are using your setups from fishing the flats, you're a braid guy, you like using braid like me, would get a longer piece of fluorocarbon leader. Okay. Or you can order a second spool when you buy your reels and put mono on it. I like using 10-pound mono clear line. The water that we're fishing for these specs, it's crystal clear. And I know it's dark and you can't, but remember, I use those lights. Lights focus down. So I like having the mono. I like having that stretch. I'm using light tackle. I got several of these 1000 series Osprey reels. That's a blast. TFO makes a panfish rod. It's a light rod. I got that 1000 on there. So much fun. Little hooks. Think about these spec have a mouth the size of a quarter. They don't have a big mouth. They also, very similar to speckled sea trout, they have a very paper thin mouth. So when you hook one, it is crucial that you keep tension the entire time because they will shake their heads. They will throw that hook if you're not being careful, if you're not keeping tension. So a little hook, split shot, 10-pound mono. If you've got some push buttons and you never use them, you're like, you know what? And they already got spooled up with 10-pound mono, go for it. Use that. Who cares? It's easy. It's fun. I'm talking, this is the most laid back, chill fishing you can do in the wintertime. And we have an absolute blast doing it. And specs are great table fare. We don't keep a lot of them. I'll keep a few to flay up and they're great fried, they're great blackened, great for tacos. We have a blast. I think they are some of the best fish you can get, and you talk about panfish. We'll get them, 12, 13 inches long, and that's a good spec. It's a really good fish. But if you've never done that, that's something new to try out. There's all kinds, and spec fishing is popular. It's huge. They've got spec tournaments. There's all kinds of videos you can watch. It's a big northern thing and Midwestern thing, but down here in Central Florida, this time of year, get out there and try some spec fishing. Go find that live bait, get some minnows or get some jigs, hit your local tackle shops, get some advice, and check it out. Well, listen, it's Captain Jonathan Moss. It's been great having you. Doing something a little different, going solo. I appreciate you guys being patient with me this week, having not much of a voice. But happy Thanksgiving to you. So we'll catch you next time. Again, I'm Captain Jonathan Moss, and this is the Captain's Log Radio.
Thanks for listening to the Captain's Log Radio with your host, Captain Jonathan Moss.